Oh yes, Gamera's back, baby! Hello, my fellow Kaiju fans. I'm Godzilla Gaiji, and finally, after 17 years of laying dormant, the Gamera franchise has returned.
And when I tell you that I was hyped for this show, I really mean it. This was by far my most anticipated project to come out in 2023. And really just one of my most anticipated events of 2023 in general.
I mean, really, graduating high school? Nothing in comparison to the return of this flying turtle boy.
And so, on the 7th of September this year, Gamera Rebirth finally came out on Netflix. And immediately, everything, my job, food, and friends and family, all had to sit on the back burner because I was watching the show immediately.
However, after watching all 6 episodes, did the show deliver, or did it tarnish the franchise for the rest of eternity?
Well, no, spoiler alert, it didn't do the latter. The actual question is, did the show deliver? Well, that's what I'm going to try and answer in this video.
However, before we begin, major spoilers for the entire show, alright? So if you haven't watched it yet, then what the heck are you doing here? Go and watch it and then come back to the video, right? So yeah, you have been warned. Spoilers ahead.
So anyways, with that out of the way, let's get into my review of Gamera Rebirth. Now I'm going to structure this video similar to how I structured the TGC videos. So let's get right into it, starting with... So the main story of the show focuses on the trio, or starting from episode 2, the quartet of kids, Boko, Joe, Junichi and Brody, and their involvement with the organization known as the Foundation, and of course with the Kaiju, most notably Gamera. To be honest, the story did take a bit of time to get going, as throughout the first 4 episodes, there really isn't much of a concrete goal for our protagonists, aside from trying to avoid being eaten by a giant derpy bird, and just trying to find out stuff about the Kaiju. Just in general.
However, once the twist in episode 5 happens, the story gets a lot more interesting. I love how throughout the first 4 episodes, the Foundation just kinda seems like this show's version of Monarch, you know? Just this organization who wants to learn things about the Kaiju and basically just research them. However, once they reveal that the Foundation is actually a part of this alien race who were responsible for creating the Kaiju in the first place, that was a genuinely cool twist, and again, it made the story a lot more investing. As well, I also really like that the show implemented these troubles within the friend group, you know, between the titular trio or quartet of kids. The tensions between their friendships genuinely felt pretty realistic, and it ultimately led to a really effective heroic sacrifice by Joe in episode 5, so that stuff was great as well. Unfortunately, however, the show also decides to throw in some completely unnecessary subplots because we can't have things running too smoothly now, can we?
Most notably in this club of subplots was a sudden and completely unnecessary crush that Brody had on Junichi. This subplot comes out of nowhere, doesn't amount to anything, and was forgotten about faster than me forgetting how to count to 10 in French after 3 years of trying to learn it at school. Without it, not a single thing in the series would change, and like I mentioned, it doesn't amount to anything, so I have no idea why they even bothered. Aside from, I guess, some somewhat comedic moments? I guess? And as for another unnecessary subplot, there were these freaking military people sitting in these tanks that we would just cut to once or twice every episode for 1 to 2 minutes, and then just carry on with the main story. And my question to this is, why? These scenes are so short and so meaningless. But the issue with these is that they actually have a payoff in the final episode, where the military guy has a heroic moment in the final battle. However, this moment feels completely hollow, because we have barely spent any time with this character, and we don't know anything about him. He hasn't gotten any sort of development, aside from the fact that we know that he exists. So this moment just feels completely unearned. And again, I have to ask, why? Why did we need this? And I actually have the answer to that. We didn't.
So yeah, the main story was pretty solid, however, it takes a bit to get going and the unnecessary side plots really bogged it down. But for the most part, story's pretty good. So with that said, let's move on to...
Ah yes, human characters, everyone's favorite part of kaiju media. No, but in all seriousness though, I think good, enjoyable human characters can really make the difference between a good kaiju flick and an excellent one.
So how are the human characters in this show? Well, like I said earlier, I really like the camaraderie within the friend group, and you genuinely buy the friendship between these kids.
I also think they did a pretty good job of balancing the kids' attitude. Like, they feel like and act like kids, but never to the point of being annoying, which is something a lot of the Showa era Gamera films kinda failed at. I also really enjoyed both Tasaki and Emiko, and even though Emiko ends up being a twist villain, I actually really like how her calm and gentle attitude contrasts with her evil and psychopathic plan to sacrifice innocent children to a giant squid. It's a very fun contrast.
However, there are some characters and character dynamics that I really wish we would have gotten to see a bit more fleshed out in the show. Most notably with Boko's mom and Joe's... Oh, Joe's dad, okay. Oh, thank Christ.
The relationship between the parents and their children aren't really explored, only shown to us briefly. However, considering how Boko's mom actually has a part to play in the finale, and how Joe's difficult home life and losing his brother has led to him treating Boko like his younger brother, and therefore being very overprotective of him, I feel like this show should have spent a little bit more time fleshing these characters out, so that these things would actually hold more weight to them.
Also, writers, if you're going to have a character arc for Brody, where he goes from a bully to a friend of the trio, that's fine, right? That's completely cool. But then maybe don't have his character arc finish already in episode 2. You know, just maybe give it a bit more time. You know, just a bit more time. Just the tip, really.
Either way, despite my complaints, I didn't mind the human characters in the show. They're nothing spectacular, but they're alright. But now, let's move on to the thing that everyone was the most hyped for.
Now this right here, this is how you bring back returning kaiju for a new era. Words really cannot describe how awesome it is to see these kaiju that haven't been on screen for like decades finally make their return. It's crazy.
First, let's just get the obvious out of the way. The designs of the kaiju, top notch. I love them so much. Gaios looks perfectly crazy and unhinged, and I love how they made him have his tongue out most of the time. Just makes him look even more insane. If you ask me, Jagger probably had the biggest glow up from the original. I was never a big fan of the original design, but this new one is sick and makes her look far more intimidating. Oh, and also I'm very thankful that they didn't have her impregnate Gamera here, because I don't want to be traumatized again. Sigra looked dope, though I do wish they would have made him a landform as well, but that's not a big deal, the redesign was still really cool. Though it's pretty hard to top the original, Garen still looked really sleek, and I love how they made him so agile and unpredictable when he's fighting. Vera's probably had the biggest change from the original, but I really like this new design. It looks super menacing, and the red eyes on the green body just pop. Also, I really like how they just made Vera's just gigantic. He towers over Gamera, and it's pretty sick. And then of course, last but not least, is Gamera himself. And in my opinion, this is a perfect modern design for an animated Gamera. He looks properly badass, and I really like how it's clearly very based off his Heisei design, which personally is my favorite design for Gamera just in general. So yeah, overall, I love the designs for the kaiju in this series. They're excellent. But how about them fights, eh?
Well, unsurprisingly, the fight scenes in this show are fantastic. They are fast-paced, intense, and feature several really brutal moments that the Gamera franchise has kind of been known for a while now.
And for me personally, the absolute standout fight of the show is definitely the Giron fight in episode 4. This fight is just... it's just so good. It's a rather lengthy fight compared to most of the others in the show, that in my opinion could have been a bit longer. In addition, I love how they fully utilize Giron's agility and unpredictable jumpy fighting style, which made him a proper challenge for Gamera to defeat. I really like how they made the Giron a genuine threat. Not to mention the brutality of this fight, which is just perfect for the kaiju that's basically a giant knife. You know what? I'm gonna say it. This is the best kaiju fight in the entire Gamera franchise.
So yeah, overall, the kaiju parts of Gamera Rebirth, great. Fantastic stuff, love it. It's really a great thing that they decided to put most of the budget towards the kaiju stuff. That was a really smart move if you ask me. Oh, and speaking of that... Yeah, if there's one thing that even people who like the show agrees on isn't the best, and it's the animation. And it's understandable because it looks terrible when the humans are on screen.
Yeah, like I mentioned earlier, they clearly focus their animation budgets on the kaiju, and therefore not only do the kaiju themselves look great, but they also for the most part move fluently, making the fight scenes a delight. However, this comes with a cost, that being that the humans are animated rather poorly. Their movements are extremely stiff, and it just gives off this feeling of low quality and cheapness. It also doesn't help that the series is going for a 3D anime style, similar to the Godzilla anime trilogy. Because of that, I'm also not the biggest fan of the human characters' designs in the series. I kinda wish that this series would have been animated in a similar style to Godzilla's Singular Point, where the humans are 2D and the kaiju are 3D. I honestly think I would have preferred that, and it would have looked better than what we actually got. That being said though, I actually really like the color palette that the show is going for. The backgrounds in particular have this almost watercolor-like aesthetic to them, kinda making them look like paintings, and this does make the human scenes a lot more bearable to watch. And like I mentioned earlier, the kaiju parts are animated rather well, so it's not all bad for the animation of the show.
In spite of that though, the animation is definitely one of the series' weaker aspects, and I can confidently say that the animation on the humans is by far the worst part of this show.
And with that, that pretty much makes it for everything that I wanted to talk about regarding this show. So let's finally move on to...
So, to answer my question from the start of the video, did this show deliver? In my opinion, yes. Yes, it did. Now, it isn't perfect, okay? Not at all. The story takes a bit to get going and also has some really unnecessary side plots. The characters aren't very deep or complex. There are several characters that I wish we would have gotten to see more of. And the animation on the humans, well, let's just put it nicely, leaves a lot to be desired.
However, in my opinion, the series more than makes up for that with enjoyable main characters, a story with intrigue, a twist that was actually surprising, great handling of the kaiju, and some truly excellent kaiju fights. And I won't lie, when I heard the rendition of the Gamera March in the credits of episode 6, I was sitting there in my chair with the biggest, dumbest grin on my face. And any show that manages to do that to me clearly is doing something right. So overall, I'm going to give Gamera Rebirth a 7 out of 10. So now that you guys know what I think of the show, I want to know what you guys think. Be sure to leave a comment on the video telling me what you guys thought of the show. Anyways, I'll see you guys in the next video. Bye bye.